Hello there. It's great to meet you all for the first time. I'm the boss of Dread, but you can just call me Dread. I'm one of the founding members of Althvinhaim, and I helped create many aspects of the world. If you watched the introduction video, you'll know that I suggested we make Althvinhaim public. I'm here today to introduce the races and subraces of Althvinhaim to all of you. Trust me, there are lots to go over. Let's start with the four major categories for races: humanoids, monsters, mythicals, and synthetics. Each category has its own races and subraces that we'll be covering in this video today. Of course, we have the humanoids. The humanoids are a very diverse category of races that have a presence on every major continent. They were all created by the human god, Daedalus. First off is your standard, run-of-the-mill human. Humans are the most populous race in Althvinhaim, and they dominate the northeastern continent of Althvinhaim. They don't possess any special skills or magic, making them one of the weakest races, as is common in fantasy. However, their main strength is their ability to work together and cooperate to complete grand tasks. Next up is the most powerful humanoid race, the Elves. The Elves are one of the most powerful races in the world, alongside the Leviathans and the Dragons. They're some of the greatest magic users in the world, only trumped by the Fae. There are many subraces of elves, including regular elves, half-elves, high elves, drow elves, sun elves, moon elves, and wood elves. The elves dominate the northwestern continent of Althvinhaim. Regular elves are your standard elves, light and bright skin with pointed ears. They're magically inclined and live all throughout the continent. Half-elves, meanwhile, are actually more common anywhere that isn't Althvinhaim, funnily enough, due to discrimination they face. High elves are the most powerful elves, and are almost seen as a sort of elven royalty. They live in the nation of Sal Evictus, which sits on an island in the middle of the continent. Only high elves are allowed inside, as they believe themselves to be superior to all other elven subraces. They boast the most powerful and sophisticated magic, making them insanely strong. Drow elves are a special subrace of elves, as they're the only ones who don't primarily rely on their magic. Instead, the drow take advantage of physical strength to stake their claim to fame. They have dark, almost obsidian-like skin, along with generally white hair. They live underground in a massive cavern complex known as Zalfantis. This ever-expanding nation produces the highest quality weapons and armor anywhere in the world. Next up are the Sun Elves. Unlike the Drow, Sun Elves have incredibly light, almost white skin, and usually yellow hair. They live atop a massive plateau in the nation of Salkirith. They worship the god of light Mendius, and their faith, the Sun Faith, is the largest in the world. They possess incredible light magic capabilities, and are considered the second strongest elves, just behind the High Elves. On the other hand, you've got the Moon Elves. This incredibly secluded subrace lives deep in the dark forest known as the Evernight in the nation of Sol Lunar. They almost never interact with the outside world. Moon Elves have skin and hair like the moon and cosmos above, making them some of the most mystical and alluring. They worship the god of dark, Zalidol, under the Moon Faith. However, unlike the Sun Faith, only Moon Elves are allowed in the Moon Faith. Lastly, we've got the Wood Elves. The Wood Elves have brownish, tan skin, along with generally blonde hair. They live deep in the Haldrados forest in the nation of Salwalonia. The entire nation is made of living wood and leaves, a testament to the Wood Elves' control over nature. They care about protecting the forest above all else and will stop at nothing to do so. They're loving and they care a lot about those around them, making them very considerate of others. The next humanoid race on this list is the Dwarves. The Dwarves don't have one centralized kingdom, but rather they're spread out across the southern continent of Castriel. They're short and incredibly tough. They love blacksmithing and forgery, with their weapons and armor being second only to the Drow. There are three subraces of dwarves: hill dwarves, mountain dwarves, and cave dwarves. The only difference between them being where they live and the size of their kingdoms. After the dwarves is a minor race known as the halflings. Sort of a mix between a dwarf and a human, these bundles of fun can be found in every continent. They love having fun and tend to take life not so seriously. They're shorter than humans but taller than dwarves on average. They don't have a state to call home and generally prefer a more nomadic lifestyle than most other humanoids. Next up is the second largest humanoid race besides humans, the beast folk. This is one of the most diverse races, with subraces ranging from all sorts of animals. We've got cat folk, dog folk, fox folk, bear folk, deer folk, and rabbit folk. Most beast folk live in Castriel and specifically within the humanoid alliance. Each subrace has their own unique appearances that correlate with the animal they're based on. Furthermore, they each have their own personality traits, like catfolk being playful and bearfolk being strong. The beastfolk are very inclusive due to the diversity within their race, making them the most welcoming and tolerant race in the world. After the beastfolk are the lizardfolk. One of the more populous humanoid races, the lizardfolk are scaly reptoids that mostly live in the Great Swamp. They have webbed feet, lizard-like appearance, and abilities to match. There are 4 subraces of lizard folk: normal lizard folk, chameleon folk, gecko folk, and horned lizard folk. Now, lizard folk are exactly what you'd expect in a fantasy setting, but where they differentiate are their abilities. Chameleon folk have the ability to camouflage themselves, making them particularly terrifying to fight. Meanwhile, gecko folk are smaller than other lizard folk, making them very elusive and hard to hit. Normal lizard folk don't have any special characteristics of note. And lastly, horned lizard folk, as you might expect, have thorny bodies that make them dangerous to get close to. While some lizard folk have migrated to the humanoid alliance, many still prefer the tribalistic lifestyle of the swamps. The second to last humanoid race is the water counterpart to the lizard folk, the merfolk. The merfolk are similar to lizard folk in that they have scales, webbed feet, tails, etc. However, the main difference is that the merfolk prefer to live in water. Furthermore, most merfolk have since migrated to the humanoid alliance. There are 2 subraces of merfolk, green merfolk and blue merfolk. Green merfolk generally tend to live on land, but they never stray far from rivers. They still love water and, won't ever travel too far away from it. Blue merfolk, meanwhile, live in water, lakes, rivers, etc. They live almost entirely underwater, only occasionally coming out for whatever reason. And the last humanoid race is the giants. The tallest and most physically strong of the humanoids, the giants live almost entirely in Castriel. There are 5 subraces of giants: normal giants, fire giants, water giants, earth giants, and wind giants. As their name suggests, the elemental giants have the protection of said element and are quite adept at that type of magic. Normal giants, on the other hand, generally possess more physical prowess than the other subraces, but little to no magical talent. So that's all the humanoid races. Next up, we have the monster category. All monsters were created by the monster god Cassiel. The races in this category tend to be powerful and or aggressive, beasts of all kind that terrorize humanoids on a daily basis. However, not all of them have the primal urge to cause harm. Some are vastly more intelligent than others. First up, let's start with the monsters that are the least intelligent, the slimes. Slimes are simple creatures, gelatinous blobs that wander in small groups, attacking people and animals alike. There are many different types of slimes, ranging from weakest to strongest. Green slimes, blue slimes, red slimes, purple slimes, and white slimes. There are also some special slimes, such as the gold slime, elemental slime, and poison slime. The green, blue, red, and purple slimes don't have any special abilities. They simply bounce towards their target until they can jump into them. White slimes, on the other hand, will split into smaller white slimes upon death. Elemental slimes are capable of using a magic type and will glow depending on what that type is. Gold slimes turn anything they touch into gold, as long as it's small enough. And poison slimes, well, they poison any living being that comes into contact with them. The next monster race is the second least intelligent, the goblins. Goblins don't have any subrace and are generally just a nuisance to most people. They travel in small bands, establishing camps in basically whatever biome they appear in. They're weak and only use crude tools. They really only become a threat when they form a large enough group, but that's incredibly rare. Next up after the goblins, we have the kobolds. Said to be descendants of the dragons, the kobolds mainly inhabit the icy continent of Osterbanog and the kobold stronghold. Kobolds are almost like small lizard folk with scales, a tail, and a snout. There are 4 kobold subraces: normal kobolds, burrowed kobolds, magic kobolds, and winged kobolds. Normal kobolds are naturally good diggers with their sharp claws and tough scales. However, burrowed kobolds are obviously even better than it, capable of making large tunnel networks with ease. Magic kobolds can use magic, obviously. And lastly, winged kobolds are simply, kobolds with wings. Very simple differentiation here. This combination of special abilities can make taking on a large group of kobolds difficult, as they're able to cover below and above you, usually. Now, we've got the orcs. Considered big brothers of the goblins, these guys are much more terrifying and powerful. Orcs are large, almost as tall as giants, though not quite. They have strong muscles and wield powerful weapons. Taking on a large group of orcs can prove challenging, especially since they have good communication skills. The subraces of orcs are green orcs, blue orcs, red orcs, and purple orcs. Green orcs are most commonly found in forests, setting up small encampments for them to live in. Blue orcs, meanwhile, love to live near the ocean and on beaches. They can often be seen swimming close to shore. Red orcs love hot environments close to fire, ash, or volcanoes. And lastly, the purple orcs just love any sort of extreme environmental conditions, from deserts to tundras. Each have their own unique traits that make them difficult to fight, and overall, it's important never to underestimate them and their strength. Now, next up is one of the single most powerful races in the world, the Leviathans. These behemoths of sea monsters are considered disastrous threats. They're capable of wiping coastal towns off of the map, and Leviathans are a scourge on modern civilization and society. Leviathans love to cause chaos, leaving trails of destruction in their wake, which can only be expected from the race created by the god of destruction, Levi. Individually, Leviathans are the most powerful race in the world. Masters of water magic, these beasts also possess powerful skills and abilities. The many subraces of Leviathans include krakens, sea serpents, anglerfish, sirens, mermaids, basilisks, and hydras. To start, krakens are massive squids with dozens of powerful tentacles. They have dozens upon dozens of meters tall, with a singular eye as big as a person. Their mouth is loaded with serrated teeth, and they can even fly. Whenever a kraken appears, a storm forms around them, making it even harder to fight them. Furthermore, their eye allows them to see everything that happens in battle. And then there are the sea serpents. These long beasts are some of the fastest creatures in the world. Sea serpents stretch for dozens of meters, sometimes up to half a football field in length. They travel along coastlines, eating anything that's unfortunate enough to be in the way. They're so fast that they can create shockwaves when they move. This makes it nearly impossible to hit them underwater, and without a homing attack of sorts, you'd be better off just fleeing. The third type of leviathan is the anglerfish. This leviathan is the one that's seen the least compared to all the others. This is because anglerfish only come up at night, and even then, they never leave the water. Instead, they use massive glowing lures to bring ships in before sinking them and consuming the crew. This makes it nearly impossible to kill an anglerfish, and generally the best you can do, avoid random nights at light. Avoid random lights at night, sorry, I tried to be menacing there, but I failed miserably. The fourth leviathan is one of the scariest and most intelligent leviathans, the sirens. The sirens are smaller than other leviathans, only being as tall as your average human. They hunt in packs at night, and they use their alluring voice to attract victims before consuming them. Due to their high level of cunning, it's incredibly difficult to kill a siren. Whilst there are methods, again, they're generally risky. The fifth leviathan is the only morally good alignment out of them all. Unlike other leviathans, the mermaids are benevolent creatures that only ever fight in self-defense. In Season 1, the mermaids lived in the Mermaid Kingdom. However, as time goes on, you'll learn what happens to their people over the course of the season. Hopefully that's something to look forward to as we move forward in Althvinhaim. I'm looking forward to it, certainly. The second to last leviathans are the basilisks. These leviathans are some of the only ones who really venture onto land for extended periods of time. Basilisks love harvesting mana from mages, turning them into an empty shell of who they once were. Furthermore, they have a petrifying gaze that turns anyone they look at to stone. This makes them one of the hardest leviathans to fight, however, you'll have an easier time dealing with them on land rather than on water. The last leviathans here are the hydras. They're often considered the most dangerous and destructive of all the leviathans. Hydras are generally described as leviathans of leviathans, with massive bodies stretching almost half a football field and incredibly powerful scales. These beasts are not to be trifled with. Their heads are the main source of their power, as it's where they attack from, obviously. However, if you cut one off, another one will simply grow in its place. All in all, out of every leviathan, the hydra is the one to fear the most. The next race of monsters is the single largest race in all of Althvinhaim, the undead. There are three main subraces to the undead: skeletons, zombies, and vampires. Each of them have their specific variants that unfortunately we won't be fully discussing. However, I will be going over a few today just so you can understand how diverse they are. For skeletons, we've got a large range of bony friends, yes. From intelligent liches to cold bones, skeletons that will freeze you to the touch. They have many varieties. Skeletal dragons, knights, and wolves. They share a lot in common with zombies. The main difference, of course, being skeletons are all bones, whilst zombies have rotting flesh. And speaking of zombies, they too have a large variety of subraces, including zombie mages, gravekeepers, and death dragons. Zombies are just as terrifying as skeletons, and the two subraces are often seen working together as mindless groups of flesh-eating beasts. However, the same can hardly be said about vampires. Compared to skeletons and zombies, vampires are incredibly cunning and far more individually powerful. Most vampires are born when a person is infected by a vampire bite. However, there are some vampires known as true vampires. These vampires were created directly by the monster god Cassiel. And there are also the Regulae Vampirulae, the vampire kings and queens. These beings are on par with the strongest beings in the world, and the only thing stopping them from having a larger presence in the world is their preference for seclusion. Continuing on, the next monster race on the list is another one of the most powerful, the demons. The demons are a special race as they live in the demon realm, which is a spirit realm. This means that demons are spiritual beings, and therefore, they can't exist in the mortal realm for extended periods of time without a physical form. Demons have many subraces, including normal demons, imps, incubi, and succubi, cambions, fallen angels, onis, and tieflings. Normal demons are the most diverse and common demon subrace. These demons come in infinite shapes, sizes, personalities, and colors. There's no limit, really. They're naturally chaotic beings, but not in an evil way. Rather, demons simply hate it when things become stagnant, preferring a life of unpredictability and good kinds of chaos, of course, in comparison to Leviathans, which love evil chaos. Meanwhile, you've got the imps. A more uncommon race of demons. Imps are some of the naturally smallest beings in the world, only larger than the Fae. Imps are small demons that love causing mischief wherever they go. You know, natural-born tricksters. If you find yourself the subject of a prank in the demon realm, you can likely think of passing imp. Next up are the incubi and the succubi. These demons feed off of sexual energy, which gives them strength and motivation. Because of this, most of them can be found working at or hanging around brothels and similar institutions. Curiously enough, they don't need sexual energy to survive, but without it they become lazy and demoralized. Now, moving on, we've got the cambions. Cambions are a special subrace as they are half-breeds between demon and non-demon. Cambions, they're special, as they're born with a physical body, allowing them to transverse the demon realm and mortal realm freely. However, they often face discrimination from both communities due to their mixed heritage. As such, most cambions struggle to find a place in society, unfortunately. Fallen angels are also special in terms of demon races. Once angels, these demons betrayed the god they served in some way, which caused them to fall. Their wings and halo turn black and they gain horns and demonic tail. Fallen angels are unique, as they too possess a physical body, along with being able to use angelic and demonic magic. Furthermore, they're the least chaotic demons due to their previous nature as an angel. Second to last are the Oni. These demons, inspired by Japanese mythology, are some of the most disciplined and respected in the demon realm. Almost all Oni live in the Oni kingdom, far northeast. They always wear armor and carry a katana with them. Unlike most demons, Oni renounce chaos and prefer a more disciplined lifestyle. This is why they tend to not get along with other demons usually. And lastly, we've got the tieflings. Tieflings are especially special, as they are demons born from a curse. Now, when a demon uses a tiefling curse on someone, it turns them into a demon with a sort of design based on why the user and or the demon wanted the curse. This makes the tieflings one of the most, well, not actually one of, the most diverse subrace in all of Althvinhaim, excuse me. And if someone with a tiefling curse has a child, that child will also receive the curse, but they will not be able to remove it, making it permanent. Most tieflings live in the tiefling encampment, a safe space for tieflings, as they face a similar issue to cambions. However, tieflings generally receive worse treatment from non-demons due to many believing that they renounce their morality in order to gain power. In some cases, this is true, but most tiefling lineages are born from desperation to survive. By the way, I hope nobody heard that like an alarm on my end went off. If it did, I'm so sorry. And the last monster race is another incredibly powerful one, the dragons. The dragons are considered the pinnacle race in many aspects, with incredibly sharp claws, durable scales, powerful magic, and wings to boot. Considered the rulers of the sky, the dragons have several subraces: fire dragons, water dragons, earth dragons, air dragons, ice dragons, lightning dragons, and dragonoids. As the names may suggest, the elemental dragons are dragons that specialize in that type of elements. Their dragon breath is based on that elements that they, have. Furthermore, their element slightly affects their personality and appearance. Dragonoids are a special case, as they're born from dragon and non-dragon. They're weaker than dragons, but possess some special abilities, making them just as threatening. And now we move on to the second to last category, the mythicals. Mythicals are beings created by the mythical goddess Seraphil. They're incredibly powerful, but more than that, incredibly elusive, with the exception of angels. Mythical races are so rare that it's considered either good or bad luck when you come across them. The first of the mythical races is, of course, the angels. The angels, they're a special race that live in heaven and serve the gods. Each god at least has some angels serving them, and they tend to whatever their god needs. There are several subraces of angels, including normal angels, guardians, seraphims, archangels, and judgmenters. Firstly, angels are tasked with simple jobs within the godly kingdoms. Anything that's menial, the angels take care of. Guardians, meanwhile, serve as commanders of heavenly battalions and are in charge of angels. They defend godly domains and are responsible for leading the angels. Seraphims are the ones that control guardians and take care of high-level tasks for the gods. Archangels are the most powerful and only respond directly to a god. They directly carry out their god's will. Lastly, the judgmenters oversee law and order in heaven. They're the ones that can banish an angel, causing them to fall. The next mythical race is the single strongest race in the world, the fairies. The fairies are the single greatest magic users and illusionists in the world. Magic itself as a concept was first discovered by the ancient fae. They're also incredibly small, less than a foot tall. This makes them the most terrifying opponent you can face in battle, with your only saving grace being their generally chill personalities. The subraces of fairy include normal fae, wood fae, water fae, light fae, and elemental fae. Normal fae, they can be found all across the Great Fairy Forest, living in basically any civilization. However, most of them tend to congregate around the Fae monarch. Wood fae live in the most dense part of the forest and use their abilities to make sure no one ever finds their homes. Water fae live near rivers and utilize their water abilities to keep people at bay as well. Light fae, meanwhile, live a similar lifestyle to wood fae. Plus, their innate skill when it comes to illusions make it even harder to find them. And lastly are the elemental fae. These are easily the most powerful of all the fae. With their magical prowess being so great, they're capable of breaking the laws of magic. And the second to last mythical race are the unicorns. The unicorns are easily the most rare race in the world, with only a handful existing at once. Unicorns are an incarnate race, meaning that when they die, they reincarnate into another unicorn and lose their memories. Unicorns never fight, only running from engagements. They're capable of using magic and illusions, making it impossible to ever catch them. Unicorns represent peace and serenity, so much so that if someone sees one, it's considered good luck for the rest of their life. On the opposite end of that spectrum, meanwhile, are the phoenixes. Phoenixes are massive firebirds that signal chaos wherever they go. Phoenixes live in the land of ashen skies, but one can manifest over any place that's having just a little bit too much chaos for just the average person. Seeing a phoenix is considered a sign of bad fortune, and that chaos is coming your way. As such, phoenixes act as a sort of deterrent from extremely violent behavior or extremely chaotic behavior in a concentrated area. Furthermore, like unicorns, phoenixes are an incarnate race, as a new one rises from the ashes created by their death. Now, the last category of races are the synthetics. The races in this group are created instead of born. In fact, they don't even exist at the start of Season 1. They're created partway through. They're created when a mana core, or monocore, and a soul is placed inside of a doll made of a sturdy material and imbued with a special kind of magic. This brings the doll to life, creating a synthetic race. Currently, there's only one race of synthetics, the homunculus. Homunculi are humanoid synthetics that in many ways look human. However, their body naturally looks more doll-like. There are 4 subraces of homunculi: type A, type B, type C, and type D homunculi. Each of them are unique in their own way and have their own specialties. Firstly, type A homunculi are the most powerful. There are only a handful of them in existence for this reason, as only certain people are capable of creating type A homunculi in the first place. Type B were the generations after type A. They're not as strong as type A, but they're made more with defense in mind. As such, all type B homunculi are made up of incredibly powerful metals, allowing them to defend weaker homunculi. Type C homunculi are the generation after, and instead of powerful metal skin, they're given wings. This allows type C to defend these skies, and keep them safe. And lastly, when I say defend the skies and keep them safe, obviously they protect other homunculi too, very cool. And of course, lastly, we've got type D homunculi, the last generation, and they're considered the civilian homunculi. They're the most populous, and they live normal, almost human lives, with many of them choosing to end their own lives after about a century or so. And just like that, we've gone through every single race and subrace in Althvinhaim. Quite a long list, there was quite a bit of detail. Skipped out on some though. I hope you made it all to the end, however. If you did, I'm glad you all decided to stick around and listen to just fucking this small part of Althvinhaim's lore. There will be much more lore information coming in the near future, so please stay tuned for that. For now, however, that is all I have for you. Until next time, guys.